Hey guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock, and yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Saturday morning. Want to say hey to all my subscribers, new as well as season. I got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Saturday morning, guys. So I have a word for you guys. This is not for everyone. Of course, every message is not. You will know it's confirmation. Or your spirit will feel ignited. But regardless, take it back to God. Allow God to break that thing down for you or to filter out what's for you, what's not. So I want to start with Kingdom Spouses Unlock. God has given me some revelation in regards to this whole kingdom spouse, kingdom partnership type of thing. And it's probably going to be not in contrast to what people are speaking about on it, but more in depth. Just not speaking about God is going to bring you a kingdom spouse. God is going to, right? He's going to do that for many of you, but it's for kingdom purposes. So with that being said, I'm going to say some things. Again, this is not for everybody, but I got tapped this morning, so I got to say it. Some of you guys have to get the idea of this marriage, this fairy tale marriage, out of your head. Now, this is not for everybody, of course, because some people are just, that ain't even their thing. But for some people, you had this idea since you were a little girl. I mean, you see the horse, you see the everything, your ball gown. I mean, everything is about a show, if you will. Times have changed. Things are different now. And granted, God is going to still honor you what you want. But the point I'm trying to make is don't go into the marriage after the wedding day thinking that this fairy tale of a marriage that you've created in your head is how marriage is going to go. If you speak to anybody who's in a marriage, even people who are successfully married, they will tell you that marriage is work. And I think some people really have just this idea in their head about what this fairy tale lifestyle is going to be. Also, some of you are not going to have the huge wedding that you wanted. Some of you have 500 people on the list. You have 100 bridesmaids. You have 100 groomsmen. And is it really because you're invested into the marriage, or is it because you want this portrait? You want to please the people in the audience. But what comes after when these people go home and you're 6 months in this marriage and you realize that it's not a fairy tale? So press in spiritually to ask God, okay, God, you said that you have a kingdom spouse for me. You have a kingdom partnership. What is this thing going to be about? Let's separate the idea of the wedding date. God, what is this thing going to really be about? What do you need us to do? Can you give me insight and wisdom now on certain things that we're going to be up against? That way I can prepare myself, or allow you to prepare me with a strong foundation, because boom, when something happens, okay, I already knew this would come about. So now we got a war in the spirit against this thing that way, this way, etc. Anything, and I mean anything, that God blesses you with, that God calls you to steward, will, all caps, will be attacked. So this is why I always say, when you see certain things in people's lives, people just see the highlights. But there's an attack against each thing that God blesses you with. So if you're not prepared accordingly, if you don't have a mindset shift prior to entering these marriages, it's not going to last. We're in the last days. God needed to last. Kingdom marriages is about doing kingdom work. So you can't selfishly think that it's all about you, right? Have your day, let it be all about you, but be open-minded enough to allow God to download in your spirit what these marriages are going to be ordained for. Meaning, we know it's kingdom purposes, but what is that kingdom purpose? What does God need you guys to do? Because there's a good chance that the people that he brings together are going to have similar, not so much similar purposes, but similar gifts where it's not so much, what's the word when two people are always strife, right? They have an understanding because, okay, I'm a giver, you're a giver, right? So we got to sit down and we have to come up with certain things. We have to polish it. We have to have meeting of the minds, but it wouldn't be all this strife because you're a giver as well. So you know how God works when you give. You understand reciprocity. You understand how God blesses you double when you get. So it makes it more parallel, which then calls for less tension. So in saying that, you have to be very, very mindful that the individual that God has for you has to be sent by God. Meaning, that didn't sound right. The person, meaning you can't get so ahead of God because you're tired of waiting and you feel like, well, I'm just going, listen, there's two guys. One I know God said is, but he's just still, so I'm going to go ahead and just take this one. Now, if God says do that, because I mean, God will raise somebody else up, but somebody else is just not, because God's purpose is going to get done, point blank, period. But I'm speaking about you getting ahead of God, meaning God has told you, no, I just haven't opened that door yet because there are certain things that you're still struggling with. I need you to, you're not listening. So instead of going and getting ahead of God because quote unquote, God is taking too long, it's very important for you to wait on the person that God has for you, regardless if you're tired of waiting, because it's going to be very detrimental if you go and marry the wrong person out of your own flesh. The man that God has for you is going to have to be a man who respects you enough to listen to you. Meaning, I'm not even going to touch the woman listening to the man, because I mean, we get it. We know that's how it should be. Well, most people do, right? So I'm speaking now about, because see, God is going to start giving each person's, but there's something going on with women right now. I don't know what it is, but well, I can't say because I don't know. I'm not a man. So men may be getting certain downloads and revelations as well, I'm sure. But it seems like the women who are really, really tapped in right now, God is giving you clear instructions, clear wisdom, clear insights on how he's going to be moving, how he's going to need you to move, how he's going to bless you with certain things so you can really get his purpose done. So in saying that, the man can't be a man who's so shut off, because you know those kinds. Child, those kinds who they don't want to hear anything that you have. Where some men, a lot of men, at least who are mature men, who are godly men, they're wise enough to know that certain things that their woman brings to them shouldn't be shut down. Even if he doesn't address it, he will still take that thing and take it back to God to see what God says about it. But I'm speaking about the man who basically anything you say, he's shutting it down. Do you know how detrimental that's going to be to the kingdom purposes? Sometimes that can be because of pride. That can be because of toxic masculinity, I think is the word, toxic masculinity. But this man is going to have to trust you enough, right? And mind you, this is why you're going to have to move a certain way, because he's going to have to trust you. So you can't be moving like you used to move, right? So he's going to have to trust you enough to receive the downloads that God has given to you, let it be in your waiting season or even when you guys get together. But he's going to be open enough to have a meeting of the minds, bring everything to the table. He takes what you got, take it back to God in a healthy, wholesome way, and you guys move accordingly. But he is going to have to listen to you, because we got some things. We got some things, and it cannot be shut down. because it's going to take the things that God is giving people right now. There are certain visions and certain insights that he's giving you that's going to actually make you wealthy in the next season. So some people will experience wealth transfer just in different ways. There's a number of ways that can happen. But with some of you, it's just a download. And you're going to have to move accordingly on the download. And then the wealth is going to accumulate that way. So this is why it's going to be crucial for you to have the person who's ordained for your life. Ladies, this is why too, it's going to be crucial for you to start working on, and I know a lot of you are already here, congrats to you, working on your emotional intelligence. Because again, things will be attacked, of course, and if you're not emotionally intelligent to understand what the enemy is really doing in your household, he's going to cause division. Then nothing gets done. You looking at him side eye, he can't even touch you. Boy, don't even look this way because there ain't nothing happening tonight. He can't even touch you, right? Y'all beefing in the house and you can't even express how you feel because maybe as a man, you were taught that men don't show emotions, right? Or as a woman, you just saw your mom just constantly emasculating and bickering and yelling and throwing things, right? Where now God needs you to be able to express how you feel with the right tone at the right timing. God needs this man to be open enough to receive you, even though he may not understand, because we already know, right? We be in our feelings and men are more logical, but he has to be able to receive you. See, this thing gotta be, this is why so many people have been in the pruning, in the wilderness, in the isolation transformation season for so long. Because these marriages and partnerships that are coming up is way, 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 way more involved and deeper than what a lot of people are thinking about. People are still thinking about that surface level of how marriage were done 20 years ago. This is a different time. We are in the last days, and God is bringing these people together for kingdom things that has to be set in place on the earth for the season that we're coming into. So you cute, boo. But you ain't that cute. So yeah, you have to really, really, really work on your emotional intelligence because the enemy is going to be coming against it, and you got to really express how you feel in a healthy way. And again, my men have to be very level-headed so he can really understand, even if he wasn't really taught by his father how to tap into women's emotions. That is something that, see, God is going to be giving out grace. He's giving out grace. This is why you can deal with people a lot different now than you could have years ago, because there's just grace that's going on right now. This is why God is calling a lot of you guys to get fit. Again, fit doesn't equate to weight all the time, but a lot of these marriages are going to be called to certain things like missionary work, but whatever it is going to require a lot of traveling, right? You may be the person who God calls, he may give you wealth to create storefronts, right? So, okay, you got a storefront for you and your neighbors or your neighborhood or your family, but now something happens, something chaotic happens, because chaos is coming, but it happens on the other side of the world. Well, you're the person that God gave the generational wealth to, gave the wealth transfer to stock up on certain supplies, certain things. So if God hits you and say, hey, you gotta go to somewhere, right? You got to move. You ain't got time, but your knees hurting and you dragging and you huffing and puffing, climbing up steps. No, ma'am. No. No, ma'am. No, sir. You are not dragging no impact machine. No, you got to go, period. Because this is why I also feel too that God have a lot of us in a season of rest. We're complaining now about Oh, it's boring. Oh, it's quiet. Oh, things are slow. Honey, chaos is coming and you got to move. So this is why a lot of you guys are being called to get fit, meaning get your energy up, not so much weight, because I know people who are heavy, but they have that energy level. So it's more about energy where you can move. You and your spouse can just move, right? He already a mile ahead of you. He looked back, your knees hurt. You got to sit down. No, ma'am. Get yourself together because we got work to do. Lord, whoo, child. Another thing, a download I received. Those of you, probably mostly women, if I'm correct, maybe I'm not, I don't know. Those of you who like to threaten things, like threaten divorce, you know when your man make you mad, honey. Sir, when you come here tomorrow, I will not be here. All that threatening people about leaving, divorcing just because you're in your feelings, that can't happen. See, again, this is the whole thing, right? You done that in your last marriage. You done it in your whole relationship. It's a different perspective. This is a different kind of marriage. So this thing got to be so solid because here's the thing. One thing that I've learned that I didn't know some time ago was how crucial trust and respect is for a man. Now, granted, ladies, I can hear you now. And I get you. I agree with you 100%. He got to be a certain type of man who deserves it. I get it. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm trying to make is when you're threatening divorce and you're threatening to leave just because you had a moment of anger, a moment of emotions, because men are just, they don't get it sometimes. They just don't get it sometimes, right? You can't do that because when you're doing that, he no longer feels stable. So in order for him to trust you, he has to feel stable, and he can't have that threat over his head that you're going to divorce him tomorrow, because now that trust is. So be very, very careful about throwing up that word divorce, throwing up that word I'm leaving you, I'm breaking up, et cetera, because that's going to really, really be detrimental. And again, I know as women, we can do that a lot when we're angry. But really, God's going to start really working on you with that, because that can't happen. And I think that's it. But I did receive an email from a good sis. And she feels like religion, quote unquote, religion or the church have taught her that if she is courting, right? She said she know who her, actually, she got married. But when they were courting, the church framed her mind that she can't have sexual energy, not sex, but almost like she have to be a prude, because having some type of sexual energy God wouldn't be pleased with that, in her own words. And she said what happened was that happened. There was no kind of nothing. They were just completely like two people on side of the earth. But when they got married, and they're non-divorced, because that sexual energy wasn't there. Because they had been programmed during the dating process to be so disconnected. Maybe sexually isn't the word. What's the word? Affectionately. That when they did get together, the sex was horrible because they both were so disconnected from each other in an intimate way. And they just couldn't get past that. So she wanted sis, this is something you will have to definitely take back to God, honey, right? Because I think God have to really guide each person, because everybody's different. But listen, I feel, yes, you have to find the balance of whatever if God is saying don't do this, you got to respect what God is saying to you. But I do think it has to be some intimacy in a level of attraction there. You just got to know how to discipline yourself to a level that, okay, this can't happen, or wait a minute, like, hold up, sir, don't touch me like that, because right? But that attraction has to be there. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, the wedding day, honey, child, sir, what are you doing? Because it ain't not happening. You're so disconnected from each other. So I think you got to take that back to God, sis. But I do feel like it has to be some type of level of intimacy, not anything sexual, because of course it can trigger certain things, and then before you know it, but it has to be a balance. But God can only give you that balance. But yeah, I'm sorry that you guys couldn't. Did you guys try like counseling to even like try to really, or traveling to try to get that spark going? How did it just go from not being sexually attracted to each other or sexually weird to divorce? I think there's so many other things that could have really, I don't know. But I wanted to share that with you guys. So again, this is not for everyone, but take it back to God to figure out what is for you, if it's even for you. You guys have a great one. It's your girl, Kizzy Rock.